Dear viewers, welcome to 90 Day Fiancé latest news. Watch the full video and give your valuable comments. Thank you. Despite his absence from the family Chantel, Pedro Jimeno will definitely redeem himself as the show's antagonist. Pedro, who is originally from the Dominican Republic, first connected with Chantel Everett online. Their romance was documented on 90 Day Fiancé, where they discussed the difficulties they had obtaining a K-1 visa and adjusting to each other's families. It's safe to say that Karen Everett was correct to be wary of Pedro's motives at all times. The problems between Pedro and Chantel intensified as their story in the family Chantel went on. The connections between Chantel and Pedro's families grew more strained as it became evident that Pedro was using Chantel in exchange for a green card. Pedro eventually started a real estate job and put more of an emphasis on self-improvement. But by the middle of 2022, he filed for divorce from Chantel, officially ending their highly famous marriage. Even if season 5 of the family Chantel is ended, Pedro's negative image will never go away. Pedro's constant attempts to crush Chantel's confidence and humiliate her on television, as opposed to encouraging and sticking by her, was a serious red flag and a sign of his ingrained evil personality. Pedro attempted to degrade Chantel even in the midst of their divorce procedures by claiming that she had stolen $275,000 from their joint account. Pedro claims that without his permission, Chantel took the money and transferred it to another account. Pedro said she stole the money so she wouldn't be able to use any of it on him. In defense of herself, Chantel allegedly stated that she took this action to safeguard her finances out of concern that Pedro might try to take more than his fair share. Their shared financial situation had become a point of contention in their relationship as Pedro continued to accuse Chantel of misusing their money and being egotistical. But this was just the final nail in his villainous coffin. In the family Chantel, Pedro didn't stand by Chantel. It seemed like he was just exploiting her to get into the country. Pedro experienced one of his darkest times when Chantel failed her nursing exam. He made fun of and embarrassed her rather than encouraging and supporting her. Pedro didn't seem to support Chantel when she failed the test. Instead, he seemed to be more interested in her ability to make money than in her professional goals. He was always criticizing her work and complaining about how slowly her career was developing. Despite Chantel's desire to become a nurse, Pedro frequently questioned her work ethic. Pedro dismissed her after the exam, and it was hard to forget how unempathetic he was. Pedro didn't seem to care that Chantel was attempting to juggle employment and education. He was more interested in getting a green card and dollar signs than he was with Chantel. Pedro never stood up for Chantel with Lydia Morel or Nicole Jimeno, even when they were in the wrong. Despite his remarkable commitment to his family, Chantel constantly found herself at conflict with Pedro's family during their relationship. Chantel was the target of many insulting comments from Lydia and Nicole, who frequently questioned her motives and painted her as manipulative, even though Pedro was the one who was manipulating them. Pedro usually stayed impartial or supported his family, seldom offering Chantel a defense against their charges. Their marriage was severely impacted by this lack of support. Chantel was violently questioned by Lydia and Nicole on her relationship with Pedro during a family meal in the Dominican Republic. Pedro chose to remain impartial and let Chantel fend for herself, rather than stand up for his wife. His marriage to Chantel was the foundation of his existence in the United States. However, he gave little indication that he cared about her. One of the reasons Pedro and Chantel's marriage collapsed was the gulf that his allegiance to his family caused. His hesitation to step in on Chantel's behalf appeared to confirm Lydia and Nicole's unfavorable opinion of her, which made their marital problems worse. Their relationship suffered as a result of this dynamic, with Chantel frequently venting her annoyance at Pedro for not putting her first. Even if he's making an effort to change his reputation, people will always view him negatively. During his marriage to Chantel, Pedro was accused of adultery. He denied all of the charges, but he gave the impression that he had cheated. His interactions with two women in his real estate office, his employer, Laura Delgado, and co-worker Antonella Barrenechea were the source of his alleged adultery. Pedro was putting more of an emphasis on his career than his marriage, but there's a chance there was a darker motive behind his absence. When Chantel discovered Antonella's name on Pedro's keys and realized her possessions were in his car, she became suspicious. Outside of work, Antonella and Pedro were also spending a lot of time together. Pedro played down Chantel's worries, saying it was all just workplace humor and good times, but something didn't feel quite right. There were questions raised by Pedro's tight friendship with Laura, his supervisor. The fact that Laura was exceptionally close to Pedro and had a criminal history involving tax fraud added to the rumors. Following the breakup with Chantel, Pedro was seen vacationing in Peru with Laura and Antonella, which fueled rumors of possible adultery. Pedro made himself appear dishonest, notwithstanding his denials of any misconduct. Pedro did nothing to try to restore his ruined reputation in the midst of all the accusations. Maybe Pedro likes to play the bad guy, or maybe he believes it's hopeless. Pedro is constantly cold toward Chantel throughout the relationship, as depicted on the family Chantel, and he never takes action to clear his name. His devotion was called into question as he routinely disregarded her worries and put his family above their marriage. Pedro is unable to defend himself when it is claimed that he married Chantel in order to obtain a green card. Pedro showed little self-awareness by placing the blame for their marriage's dissolution on Chantel rather than accepting responsibility for it. His actions following the divorce, which centered more on playing the hilarious person online, haven't done anything to improve his reputation. His game plan is to constantly sidestep responsibility and offer empty excuses. Chantel, on the other hand, has remained composed and concentrated on her family, work, and personal development. She avoided a bullet by leaving Pedro since his incompetence would have only caused more heartache. Pedro's reputation will never be restored, and he will always be seen as the antagonist in the family Chantel narrative. Any attempts are made too late and too little. This gossip is over. If you liked the video, then give your opinion in the comment box and stay with us by subscribing the channel. Thank you.